Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, if you believe that true strength isn't about physical power, but about the unbreakable will of the human spirit, smash that like button. Let's get today's story started. To everyone in the picturesque town of Crestwood, Dr. Alistair Vance was a saint. With his perfectly coiffed silver hair, tailored suits, and a smile that could calm a frantic heart, he was the town's most revered cardiologist. He chaired charity galas, donated generously to the Children's Hospital, and spoke with a soft, authoritative grace that made people feel safe. And then there was Esther. Esther Vance was his tragic, beautiful secret. A once promising pianist, she was left a paraplegic after a car accident 5 years ago. The community saw her as a fragile, broken bird, a burden borne with incredible grace by her devoted husband. They saw him push her wheelchair through the farmer's market, tenderly tuck a blanket around her legs at outdoor concerts, and speak of her with a voice thick with loving sorrow. What they didn't see was the lock on the inside of the pantry door. What they didn't hear was the sound the belt made when it wasn't holding up his trousers. Their home, a starkly modern masterpiece of glass and steel on a cliff overlooking the ocean, was not a sanctuary. It was Esther's gilded cage. By day, Alistair was the doting caregiver. By night, when the world wasn't watching, he was her tormentor. "The world sees a cripple," he'd whisper, his breath hot against her ear as he tightened his grip on her wrist, his voice a grotesque parody of the one he used in public. "But I see the lazy, worthless woman who can't even keep her own house clean. I save lives every day. What do? You sit. You exist. You are a drain on my resources, my patience, my life." Esther never cried out. Not anymore. The first year she had. He'd just hit her harder, his blows calculated, landing on her torso, her thighs, places hidden by clothing. Who would they believe, Esther? He'd sneer. The town's beloved doctor? Or the hysterical, depressed invalid? He was right. She was utterly alone. Her family was gone. Her friends had slowly drifted away after the accident, unsure how to interact with the woman in the wheelchair, subtly encouraged by Alistair's narratives about her unstable moods and deep depression. Her only window to the world was her tablet, and even that was monitored. Or so he thought. Esther had a secret, a tiny, flickering flame of defiance she nurtured deep inside her shattered soul. The accident had taken her legs, but it had sharpened her mind into a razor. She saw the world in minute details now, the slight twitch in Alistair's jaw when he lied, the way he carefully positioned her wheelchair to maximize the public's view of his devotion, the specific brand of bourbon he drank that loosened his tongue and tightened his fist. And she recorded everything. Not on her tablet. He checked that. She used an old, battered voice-activated recorder a nurse had accidentally left behind years ago. She hid it inside a hollowed-out book of Chopin's nocturnes, a cruel joke only she appreciated. Every night, after his rage was spent and he'd stalked off to bed, she would whisper her testimony into the silence. October 12th. He used the buckle end tonight. The excuse was a cold dinner. He said, "I'm getting sloppy. He doesn't know I'm getting stronger." Her voice on the recordings was not the meek, defeated whisper she presented to him. It was calm, analytical, and filled with a cold, simmering fury. This was her therapy. This was her evidence. This was her hope. But a plan? She had none. She was trapped, a prisoner in a fortress designed by her jailer. Until the night of the annual hospital charity ball. Alistair was to receive the Humanitarian of the Year award. He preened in front of the mirror, adjusting his tuxedo. "Such a shame you can't be there, my dear," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. All those stairs, the crowds. It would be so overwhelming for you. Don't worry, I'll have Mrs. Gable bring you your dinner. I'll record my speech for you. He kissed her forehead, his lips feeling like a slug against her skin. The moment the front door clicked shut, the silence of the house descended, heavy and suffocating. Esther wheeled herself to the vast floor-to-ceiling window, watching the lights of the town twinkle below. The ball was there. The entire town was there, celebrating her monster. A wave of despair, blacker and deeper than any she had felt before, washed over her. This was her life, forever. The recordings were a fantasy, a pathetic dream of a broken woman. What was she going to do? Mail them to the police? The chief of police was Alistair's golf partner. Play them for a friend? She had none. The flame inside her guttered, threatening to go out. Just then, a notification chimed on her tablet. It was a message from an old email account she rarely checked, one she used for online piano forums years ago. The subject line read, Your interpretation of Debussy's Clair de Lune. Frowning, she opened it. It was from a user named Watchful Harmony. The message was short. A piece played with such technical precision yet profound sadness deserves to be heard again. The world is darker without your music. Remember, the strongest cages are often the ones we cannot see. Look for the cracks. They are there. Esther's blood ran cold. Who was this? It couldn't be a coincidence. The timing was too perfect. Look for the cracks. Her eyes scanned the grand, sterile living room. What cracks? Alistair was meticulous. He controlled everything. Her gaze fell on his study door. It was always locked. He'd told her it was to keep her from wandering in and getting hurt by all the medical equipment and sensitive files. But she'd heard him in there, late at night, not on medical calls, but speaking in a low, tense voice to someone. Not a colleague. The tone was all wrong. A crack. He thought she was helpless. He thought she was broken. He had no idea that the woman he beat every night was piece by piece assembling a puzzle. The flame inside her roared back to life, not as a flicker, but as a bonfire. She wheeled herself to the study door. It was a sturdy, solid oak lock, impossible for her to break. But Alistair, in his arrogant belief in his own control, had a habit. He stored all the keys in a beautiful ceramic bowl on the mantelpiece, in plain sight. Because who would dare touch them? Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, a point of no return. With trembling hands, she maneuvered her wheelchair to the fireplace. She reached up, her fingers brushing against the cold ceramic. She sifted through the keys, car keys, shed keys, storage unit keys. And then she found it. A small, brass key. It took her 3 tries, her hand shaking so violently she could barely grip the key, but it slid into the lock and turned with a soft, satisfying click. The study was a shrine to Alistair's ego. Awards lined the walls. But her eyes went straight to the desk, to his laptop. Another locked door. But she knew his password. He was vain, not clever. It was the date of the day he'd won his first Doctor of the Year award. The laptop whirred to life. Files upon files of patient records, research papers. Then she saw a folder, hidden amongst dozens of others, labeled simply AC Holdings. She opened it. Spreadsheets. Bank statements from an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Millions of dollars moving in and out. And then, a subfolder. Project Saturn. Inside were invoices for medical equipment. But the quantities were enormous. Far more than one hospital, or even a dozen, could need. And they were being shipped to a shell company, then rerouted to a free clinic he supposedly ran in the city's poorest district. A clinic that was always in the news, begging for donations. The pieces slammed together with the force of a physical blow. The charity galas, the donations. It was a laundering scheme. He was stealing donated money, buying equipment through his shell company at inflated prices, and pocketing the difference. The free clinic was a front, a prop for his saintly image. His darkest secret wasn't that he beat his wife. It was that his entire life was a meticulously constructed lie. Esther didn't hesitate. She plugged her recorder into the laptop and downloaded everything. Every spreadsheet, every invoice, every secret. She copied it onto the recorder's memory card and onto a cloud drive she accessed through a private browser, emailing it to the mysterious Watchful Harmony address with a single word. Proof? The reply was almost instantaneous. Proof. The cage door is open. The choice is yours. She heard the crunch of gravel on the driveway. Alistair was home early. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through her. She yanked the recorder out, closed the files, shut down the laptop, and wheeled herself out of the study, locking the door behind her. She just managed to get back to her spot by the window, the key back in its bowl, as the front door opened. He was humming, holding his award. He reeked of bourbon and triumph. "Well, my love," he slurred, his eyes glinting with malicious joy. "They all praised me. They called me a hero. They feel so sorry for me, burdened with you. They have no idea the real burden is your ingratitude." He walked toward her, loosening his belt. Esther didn't flinch. She looked him directly in the eye, a small, strange smile playing on her lips. For the first time in years, she was not afraid. "Did you have a nice time at the ball, Alistair?" she asked, her voice steady. He stopped, thrown by her tone. The fear wasn't there. It unsettled him. Anger quickly replaced his confusion. "Don't you take that tone with me," he snarled, and the belt came down. But this time, Esther was not recording his sin. She was counting his final steps toward his own oblivion. 2 days later, the town of Crestwood was plunged into a nightmare. A frantic 911 call from Dr. Alistair Vance. His voice, cracking with a perfect blend of panic and despair, echoed through the police station. "She's gone! My Esther, she's vanished. I just went to get her morning tea and she was gone. Her wheelchair is still here. Someone must have taken her. Please, you have to find her. She can't survive on her own." The police descended on the Vance residence. The story was plastered across every news channel. Disabled woman disappears. Grief-stricken husband pleads for answers. Alistair was magnificent in his performance. On camera, he broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. He spoke of his devotion, his fear, his love. He offered a massive reward. The town rallied around him. Candlelight vigils were held. Search parties combed the cliffs and the woods below, fearing she had somehow fallen, or worse, been pushed. The narrative was set: a vulnerable, helpless woman, victim of a terrible crime, a saintly husband destroyed by grief. Detective Maria Reyes wasn't buying it. Reyes was a bulldog of a woman with a weary face and eyes that had seen every brand of human deceit. She'd been assigned to the case, and from the moment she shook Alistair's perfectly manicured hand, her instincts screamed. His grief was too loud, too performative. It was like watching an actor who had studied grief but never felt it. "Let's walk through it again, Doctor," Reyes said, her voice calm and neutral inside the pristine home. "You left her here in the living room at approximately 9:15 a.m. to make tea in the kitchen. You were gone for, what, 5 minutes? Maybe less," Alistair choked out, dabbing his eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "I heard nothing. No struggle, no cry for help. She just vanished into thin air. She can't walk. Someone must have been waiting. A stalker, maybe. Someone who targeted her because of her vulnerability." Reyes nodded, her eyes scanning the room. No signs of a struggle. Nothing out of place. It was the cleanest crime scene she'd ever seen. Too clean. And the security system? Activated on all doors and windows, Alistair said, his voice trembling with just the right amount of shame. But I disabled the cameras 2 weeks ago. They were making Esther paranoid. She said she felt like she was always being watched. I didn't want to add to her distress. How convenient, Reyes thought. Her eyes fell on the mantelpiece, the ceramic bowl of keys. She walked over. You keep all your keys here? Out in the open? Yes, Alistair said, a faint note of irritation creeping into his sorrow. Is that relevant, detective? Just being thorough, Reyes said. Her sharp eyes noticed something, a tiny, almost invisible scratch on the brass plate around the keyhole of his study door, a fresh one. Your study is locked? For her safety. Alistair's response was a little too quick, a little too sharp. As I said, medical equipment, sensitive files. Reyes filed it all away, the performative grief, the disabled cameras, the locked study with a fresh scratch, the husband who was a little too perfect. Meanwhile, Alistair was milking the public sympathy for all it was worth. He gave tearful interviews. He launched the Find Esther campaign. Donations to his free clinic skyrocketed. He was more beloved than ever. But in the quiet of his home, when the cameras were gone, he was frantic. Not with worry, but with rage. Where was she? How had she done it? He tore the house apart looking for clues, for anything she might have left behind. He checked her tablet. Nothing. He checked her emails, only spam and newsletters. He never thought to check the hollowed-out book of Chopin's nocturnes. He hated her dismal music. A week after the disappearance, the first crack appeared. An anonymous email was sent to every major news outlet in the state. It contained an audio file. The headline read, "The Voice of Esther Vance." The file, when played, was chilling. It was Esther's voice, calm and clear. November 3rd. He told the neighbors today that I was too depressed to come to the window and wave. The truth is, he had dislocated my shoulder the night before, and the sling would have been too difficult to explain. He brought me yellow roses. He said they were to brighten up the room. I think they were to brighten up his conscience. It didn't work. The media exploded. The town was shocked. But Alistair was ready. He called an immediate press conference, his face a mask of devastation. He broke down, sobbing. "This is my greatest shame," he wept, and the performance was Oscar-worthy. My Esther, she suffered from severe paranoid delusions. She was recording these fantasies. Her therapist can confirm her diagnosis. She created a monster in her mind because she couldn't process her own trauma. This doesn't mean she's not in danger. This just means she's out there, confused and alone, believing her own husband is a villain. We must find her. He produced a letter, allegedly from a psychiatrist, confirming a diagnosis of severe clinical depression with psychotic features. It was a forgery, of course, created by a shady contact from his Project Saturn dealings. The public, wanting to believe their hero, largely bought it. The narrative shifted from abused wife to tragically delusional woman. Detective Reyes listened to the audio again and again. She didn't hear delusion. She heard the cold, precise testimony of a historian documenting a war crime. She heard truth. She went back to the Vance house with a search warrant, focusing on the study. Alistair was smug, confident. "By all means, detective. You'll find nothing but my life's work." They dusted the key from the bowl for fingerprints. Alistair's were all over it, but the forensics tech, using an oblique light, found something else. A partial print, smudged, but recoverable, on the shaft of the key. It didn't match Alistair's. It was from a smaller hand. A hand that had to grip the key with immense effort to turn it. Esther's hand. She had been in the study. While Reyes was digging, Alistair received another email. This one was personal, from Watchful Harmony. The performance is impressive, Doctor. But the second act is about to begin. The money trail is longer than you think, and much easier to follow. Check account number 734-XB21. Then we'll talk. Alistair's blood turned to ice. He frantically logged into his offshore account. It had been drained, every last dollar, transferred to a series of untraceable digital wallets. He screamed, hurling his laptop across the room. This wasn't a disappearance. This was a heist, and he was the mark. The pressure was closing in on Alistair from all sides. Detective Reyes was circling, the money was gone, and the mysterious, Watchful Harmony was taunting him. He decided to go on the offensive. He scheduled a prime-time interview with a famous, sympathetic news anchor to reinforce his narrative and buy himself time to flee. He still had some cash stashed away. He could disappear, start over. The interview was set in his living room. The camera lights were hot. The anchor, a woman named Sarah, leaned forward, her face a picture of compassion. Dr. Vance, the public has heard these disturbing recordings. Help us understand. Help us understand how your beloved Esther could have created such a terrible reality. Alistair took a deep, shuddering breath, ready to launch into his well-rehearsed lie. But before he could speak, every screen in the house, the large wall-mounted TV, the tablets, even the anchor's own teleprompter, flickered and went black for a second. Then they lit up again. But they were no longer showing the live feed. They showed a spreadsheet. The heading was clear. Project Saturn, Q3 Laundering Summary. Gasps filled the room. The camera crew, thinking it was a technical glitch, scrambled. Alistair stared, his face draining of all color. The screen changed again. It showed invoices for ventilators, bought by his shell company for $25,000 each, sold to his charity for $45,000 each, millions in profit. Then, a video feed appeared. It was grainy, from a hidden camera. It showed Alistair in his study, on a video call. His voice rang out clear as day through the TV speakers. The shipment needs to be rerouted through the Bahamas this time. The FDA is getting suspicious about the clinic. Just make the problem go away. I've donated enough to the right campaigns to make a few expired ventilators disappear. The anchor, Sarah, stared at the screen, her professional compassion morphing into horror. She turned to Alistair, her microphone still live. Dr. Vance. What is this? He was frozen, a deer in the headlights. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Then, the pièce de résistance. The screens changed one last time. It was a live video feed. It showed a room, a simple, clean room. And sitting there, in a new, sleek wheelchair, was Esther. She looked different. Her hair was styled. She wore a simple black dress. Her posture was ramrod straight. And her eyes held a fire that could have powered the entire city. She looked directly into the camera, her gaze seeming to pierce through the screen and into Alistair's soul. "Hello, Alistair," she said, her voice not a whisper, but a clear, commanding instrument. "You told everyone I was delusional. You told them I created a monster. You were right. I did. I created you, the saint of Crestwood, the devoted husband. I helped you build that myth, brick by brick, while you tried to break me, night by night." The broadcast was being hijacked. It was going out live to the entire nation. "You beat a disabled woman to feel powerful," she continued, her voice dripping with contempt. But your true crime was stealing hope from the sick and the poor to feed your own bottomless greed. You didn't just break your wedding vows, you broke your Hippocratic oath. You are a thief, a liar, and a coward. Alistair finally found his voice. She's lying! It's a deep fake! She's insane! He screamed, but his protests were drowned out by her damning, calm narration. She held up a small recorder. This is not a delusion, Alistair. This is a diary. And this, she said, holding up a USB drive, is your confession. Every financial record, every email, every secret. I've already sent it to the FBI, the IRS, and every major news network. She leaned forward, and the full force of her will was focused on him. You asked me what I did all day, Alistair. While you were saving lives, what was I doing? I was studying you. I was learning your patterns. I was finding your cracks. And I was waiting for my moment to remind you of one simple truth you forgot. She paused, letting the silence hang in the air. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. You didn't break me. You forged me. On screen, behind Esther, a figure stepped into the light. It was the nurse, a woman named Imani, who had accidentally left the voice recorder behind years ago. She was watchful Harmony. She had seen the bruises, heard the whispered threats, and had known better than to go to the authorities. Instead, she had become a silent guardian, a watchful friend, waiting for the right moment to help Esther shatter the cage herself. The live feed cut out. The studio was in chaos. Alistair Vance, the town saint, stood completely still amidst the whirlwind, exposed as a monster. The final audio clip played over the screaming headlines on every screen was from Esther's recorder. It was the sound of a belt hitting flesh, followed by Alistair's voice, vicious and clear. You are nothing without me, you pathetic cripple. Nothing. And then Esther's voice, a whisper on the recording, but now heard by millions. You're wrong. I am everything you fear. And I am coming for you. Alistair Vance was arrested on a litany of charges: spousal abuse, fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. His assets were seized. His medical license was revoked. The Humanitarian of the Year award was rescinded and melted down. He was sentenced to life in prison, a fate worse than death for a man who lived on admiration and control. He became a pariah, a cautionary tale. Esther Vance, with the help of the recovered funds, which she donated to create a real network of free clinics for victims of abuse and those with disabilities, faded from the public eye. She wanted no fame, but she didn't stop playing. A year later, a small, elegant concert hall hosted a charity event. The performer was listed only as E. She rolled onto the stage to a hushed crowd. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. It was Debussy's Clair de Lune. But it was unlike any version ever heard before. It wasn't just technically flawless. It was a story. The notes began soft and wounded, filled with a profound, aching sadness. Then they grew, twisting into passages of terror and dissonance, a musical representation of pain and fear. But that didn't last. The melody fought back. It became stronger, more complex, filled with a determined, rising power. It wasn't a peaceful moonlit night anymore. It was the brilliant, unyielding light of dawn breaking after the longest, darkest night imaginable. It was a story of survival. It was her story. When the final note faded into a stunned silence, the audience erupted into a thunderous, tear-filled ovation. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't a vanished wife. She was Esther, a survivor, a virtuoso, a woman who had composed her own revenge symphony and conducted it to perfection. She had turned her silence into a weapon and her pain into power. Wow. Just, wow, what a story. It really makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you think about the secrets people hide behind closed doors. It makes you think about the incredible strength of the human spirit and how we so often underestimate people based on what we see on the surface. Esther's power wasn't in her legs. It was in her mind, her patience, and her unwavering will. Alistair's weakness wasn't his eventual capture. It was his monstrous ego and his belief that he could ever truly own another human being. I want to hear from you now. Let me know in the comments. What was the moment in this story that hit you the hardest? Was it when she found the key? When she spoke to him through the live feed? Or her final performance? And if you have ever felt underestimated or trapped in a situation, only to find a hidden strength you never knew you had, share your story below. Your experience could be the beacon of hope someone else needs to see today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. We have so many more powerful stories of revenge, betrayal, and ultimate justice coming your way. Remember, the truth always finds a way to the light. Stay strong, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next video.